Hey there, Mercedes here from PrettyWebz.com, and today I'm going to show you how to turn default Photoshop brushes into flowery watercolor brushes. So we're going to make a flower brush and a leaf brush from existing brushes inside of Photoshop. But the best part about these brushes is that you do not have to know how to draw in order to use them. The brushes are going to do all the heavy lifting. So I'm not actually going to show you how to make brushes here, meaning I'm not going to show you all of the settings for these brushes. There will be a link down in the description so that you can download the two brushes that I'm going to show you, and then you can play with them on your own, making adjustments and working with the brushes in order to make them your own. But I do want to show you how you can change the settings and how you can work with these brushes in order to make watercolor illustrations without drawing at all. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. This is what I'm starting with right here. This is a 5 by 7, 5 inch by 7 inch, and it's at 300 resolution. This is what I would typically use for a card. Again, if you were actually printing this, you would go to your printer and get the settings from the printer. But this is pretty standard right here. So I'm going to use this size, and I'm going to go ahead and add a few layers here. So I'm going to add these 3 layers. They're actually just going to be 3 different flowers, and every one of these flowers is going to use the same brush. I just want to show you different ways that you can use it and adjustments that you can make to the brush in order to get kind of different variations of this type of flower that we're going to be creating. Now, just a disclaimer, you will need a tablet in order to use these brushes the way that they're intended to be used. You can get tablets pretty cheap. I use a pretty cheap Wacom. It is a Wacom Intuos Pro tablet. I have a paper edition, and this wasn't expensive at all. I have an even cheaper one, which is it's called a Huion. I use that with my PC. For some reason, that doesn't work very well with the Mac. But that one works just as well as this Wacom tablet, and that one I paid less than $100 for. Probably I've seen them for even $50. So they're not very expensive, and they will change the way you use Photoshop. So I highly recommend that you get one if you don't already have one. So anyway, let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to show you the brushes that we're going to be using. This first one right here was created using this brush. This is from Legacy Brushes, default brushes, and I am starting here with this round point stiff. Now, these bristle brushes that come default with Photoshop have some qualities and have some settings that you can't get from a brush that you create on your own, from an image or something that you paint on your canvas. So these are pretty special brushes. They actually simulate actual brushes. So you can start with one of these right here. I'm going to go ahead and start with this, and I'm going to go over to the settings because I want to show this to you. So this particular brush, you'll see that you have these bristle qualities. This is not something that you see in a brush that you're building from scratch on your own. These bristle brushes actually have different shapes that you can choose from. We are going to be using the round point for ours, and then you can see all of the different settings that you can make to the bristles. And these brushes actually used to have this little picture that would show up here, but for some reason I'm not getting that with this. So it used to show up here in the corner. If anybody here has an older version, you might see that there in the corner. It's like a little 3D picture. It shows you how the brush or what the brush looks like. If you want to make your own, it doesn't even matter which one of these you choose to start with, because you can always just come in here and change it. But you cannot change the bristle quality on a brush that you've created from an image. That was basically the point of that. So let me come back here, and just so you know, we did start with this one right here, round point stiff. I'm going to go ahead and select that brush. I want to show you my settings for this up here. So I have my mode at normal, opacity 100%, and my flow is at 5% because we're going to be using this as a watercolor brush. I want it to be really light. We'll start here with this. I'm going to go over here to the brush settings because I want to show you the settings that I made to this brush. So if you remember, it was just a pretty flat brush, and now we have all of these bristles. So this one right here is going to determine how many bristles you actually have in your brush. So you can have thicker, thinner bristles. If you bring it down, you'll have less. If you bring it up, you have more. The length is just basically the length of the bristles. Thickness, these are all pretty self-explanatory. This is how thick your bristles will be. The stiffness is going to be your hardness. 0 is going to be super soft. 100% is going to be a very stiff, hard brush. So this is hardness and softness here. And then the angle is just going to determine how the brush rotates around its center point. Okay, so spacing is also very important. If you have 0 spacing, you can see that you have this much more uniform bristle. The more you bring it up, the more separated those bristles become. So I'm going to bring the size of this up to 100 just so we can take a look at what this would look like. So at 15% spacing, I'm going to go ahead and I am using the tablet, so you can see when I use my mouse what it's going to look like. So this is me painting with the mouse, and then this is me painting with the tablet. So you can see there's a very big difference in the way this brush behaves with the mouse versus the tablet. Okay, so let's start to make some of these flowers. And again, you will have these brushes, so you can go in and work with those sliders and get the exact brush that you'd like. I'm actually going to show you what that brush looks like just on its own. So you can see it doesn't do any of the stuff that I'm trying to make it do. Let's bring this back up to 100. I'm using this color right here. This is E5A 8A8. So that's the color that I'm using, and I'm just gonna softly add that color in here, and you can see I'm just going in a little circle, just painting a little circle. I'm not doing anything special, just painting in a circle. So this is going to be my first flower. I'm going to go ahead and I'll add linear burn to the top of this, and I'm doing this softly because if I go too hard, let me do that so you can see. So you start to get these little spikies out there. It's a nice look, but you may or may not want that. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it just because we already did it. And then I'm going to turn that off. We'll make another one. I'm going to come down here to flower number 2. And this time I'm going to start with linear burn. And again, just filling in a little circle. And I'm pressing really hard at this point because we have all these, coming out here. So you can see the difference between the first flower that we made and this one. You have all these little wispies coming out. I'm going to go ahead and choose screen, and I'm going to go over it again with the lighter color. I do like the depth of this. And if I went too far, I can just go back in with a darker blending mode and fill that in one more time. So you can just keep working with these modes right here in order to build something that is beautiful and interesting to you. So I have these 2 flowers now. Let me go ahead and turn those off. And for our third flower, we're going to start with the screen. And again, just doing that little circle there. I'm going to add normal. And then you can just keep on going, just adding little bits here and there to create that flower. So now we have 3 flowers here. And we've gotten different looks from all 3 of these flowers just by changing the blending mode. Let me go ahead and turn all of these on and just move them into place here. We'll move that over there. I do want to give them some space because I'm going to add some leaves to them here in a minute. But I just wanted to show you the different ways that you can create a flower just by changing the blend mode and by working with the pressure that you're using on the pen. I'm going to go ahead and grab all 3 of these, Command and the letter G to group them because I want them to look like they're actually painted on this right here. So I'm just going to add a pattern to this. So let's see, we're gonna come back in here and I'm gonna use one of the erodible textures right here. So this is gonna be from Legacy Patterns and More, Legacy Patterns, erodible textures. And I'm using this one right here. It's called Fine Grain. Now you can work with all of these and see what you like the best, but I'm gonna use this because I wanna show you how you can lighten and darken your pattern as well to make it look even more like a watercolor. We're gonna leave this at 200%. It's going to be pretty big and everything else is going to stay the same. Okay, so I'm going to press the Option key, Alt key on a PC, and then when you see that little arrow right there and the square, you can just click and that's going to clip it to those flowers. We're going to change the blend mode of this to soft light. And you can see that that's a pretty strong texture over the top. So what we're going to do is make some adjustments to this layer mask. We're going to come over to this background color right here. And right now we have it set to 150% gray. I'm going to actually bring that down to 75% gray. So right there, and that's RGB colors 75, 75, 75. The hex code is going to be 4B, 4B, 4B. And that is 75% gray. We're going to try that one. Make sure that you have that mask selected and then Command and Delete, Control and Backspace on a PC. That's just going to lighten it so you can still see the texture in the flower, but it's not overwhelming. And then you can go back and make it lighter or darker depending on how much of that texture you want to show through on your flower. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel that. So that's our flowers. So we'll go ahead and start with the leaves. I'm going to add a new layer right above the wash. This is going to be the leaves. Now for the leaves, I have this brush right here. Let me show you the brush that I used to make that. Okay, so inside of Legacy brushes, you'll come down to Thick Heavy brushes. And we are using this one right here. It's called Smoother Round Bristle. So this is the original brush. It's not a bristle brush. It's just a basic brush. So you're not going to have all of those settings that we had in that first brush. But the main thing that I did to this brush is add that tail to it at the bottom. So let's see. Let's go back in here. This is the actual brush that you're going to get. So you can see that we have this. This is the leaf area, and then it has this kind of like vining to it. And the way I got that was coming in here to Shape Dynamics, and I chose Fade. So I'm fading 150. So if I bring this down, so say I bring it to 50%, you can see how much smaller that gets. If I bring it to 300%, you can see how much longer that leaf would be. So these are also adjustments that you can make to your leaves if you want longer leaves or just smaller ones. This is where you would make that change. So I'm going to take it back to 150. So I'm going to switch my colors. The color that I'm using here is 385005. I'm going to click OK. You can actually do this one with the mouse. It's not going to be a problem. So this is what it looks like when I use the mouse. The flower brush, you will need a tablet in order to get this effect, but you will not need that. So you can do that with your mouse very easily. So I'm going to come in here and just start making some leaves, bringing those in. You can see how easy this is. I'm not drawing anything. I'm just basically dragging this out here. Let's go back in here. I want to just take a look at the settings one more time. I want to make a broader leaf, I guess. So we'll go 250 on this one, and we'll see what that leaf would look like. So you can see how much longer that is. You can see that we made a watercolor image based on 2 brushes, and we barely did any painting at all. So all of the heavy lifting was done by the Photoshop brushes. And I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Visit PrettyWebz.com for more design resources and tutorials. If you want more watercolor tutorials, I will leave a link down in the description. Until next time, thanks for watching.